Zax'Voon slouched in his hoverpod, three of his eye stalks drooping with boredom, while the fourth remained dutifully focused on Supreme Commander Krell's endless speech. The Grand Assembly Hall of Rigel, 7 buzzed with the excited murmurs of the Galactic Confederation representatives. All 12 species represented, -1. "Can you believe we are actually doing this?" whispered Trill, his neighboring Valerian, whose translucent skin pulsed with anxious blue light. "Exterminating an entire species? It seems excessive." Zax'Voon twitched his sensory tentacles dismissively. "Oh, please, have you actually met a human? Dreadful creatures, always smiling with those horrifying teeth bones. Besides, the decision's been made. The human diplomat sealed their fate." At the mention of the diplomat, the assembly hall grew quieter. Everyone remembered what had happened 3 lunar cycles ago. Ambassador Chen, the last human representative to the Galactic Confederation, had committed the ultimate transgression. He'd told a joke during the sacred silence ceremony of the Zorblaxians. The resulting diplomatic incident had escalated beyond all reason, culminating in his public execution and the Confederation's unanimous vote to eradicate humanity. Well, nearly unanimous. Zax'Voon had abstained, not out of any particular fondness for humans, but because he'd been napping during the vote. And so, my esteemed colleagues, Supreme Commander Krell's gravelly voice boomed through the hall, his 6 arms gesticulating wildly. "The Armada will depart at dawn tomorrow. The human infestation will be cleansed from the galaxy once and for all." The assembly erupted in tentacle-waving, appendage-clapping approval. Zax'Voon joined half-heartedly, already calculating how quickly he could get to the fermented nutrient dispensary after the session. "Isn't this a bit of an overreaction?" Trill continued, clearly unable to read the room. "I mean, it was just a joke. Just a joke." Zax'Voon rolled all 4 of his eyes simultaneously, a gesture he was quite proud of. It was during the sacred silence. Ambassador Glixvort's ceremonial breathing sac actually ruptured from shock. He was in regeneration for a full cycle. "Still, look," Zax'Voon lowered his voice. "Between you and me, I couldn't care less about humans. They are loud, they are messy, and they insist on wearing those ridiculous coverings over their disgusting skin. But the Confederation has spoken. Besides, I hear Earth has some valuable minerals. My cousin has already put in a bid for mining rights after the cleansing." The session finally adjourned, and Zax'Voon propelled his hoverpod toward the exit, eager to reach the nutrient dispensary before the after-meeting rush. As an intelligence officer for the Confederation, he technically had important work to do preparing for tomorrow's Armada launch, but that could wait. His superior, Director Court, would understand. Or not. Zax'Voon didn't particularly care. He was nearly at the dispensary when his communication implant buzzed. Sighing dramatically, he accepted the call. "Intelligence Officer Zax'Voon," came Director Court's scratchy voice. "Report to docking Bay 94 immediately. There's been an incident." "An incident? Can't someone else handle it?" "I'm about to now, Officer Zax'Voon. A human vessel has been detected entering our atmosphere." Zax'Voon's eye stalks stiffened in surprise. "A human vessel? But that's impossible. Their ambassador was executed. They shouldn't even know where Rigel 7 is located. Evidently, they do. And you're going to find out how. Docking Bay 94. Immediately." The communication ended abruptly. Zax'Voon hovered in place for a moment, contemplating ignoring the order and proceeding to the dispensary anyway. But curiosity got the better of him. A human vessel? Here? Now? Perhaps this day wouldn't be so boring after all. Docking Bay 94 was in chaos when Zax'Voon arrived. Security drones buzzed around a small, sleek ship unlike any human vessel he'd seen before. Its design was elegant, almost Arcturian, but that made no sense. The Arcturians were founding members of the Confederation. They wouldn't aid humans. Director Court spotted him and waved him over with 2 of his tentacle clusters. "Finally, we have contained the vessel, but we can't open it. The security protocols are unusual. Have you tried just blasting it open?" Zax'Voon suggested, only half joking. Court's skin mottled with annoyance. "Of course we have. The hull appears to be made of some composite material that absorbs energy weapons. We need to access it carefully anyway. We want information before we vaporize whoever's inside." Zax'Voon moved his hoverpod closer to the vessel, studying its smooth surface. Fascinating. This doesn't look like human technology. It's too elegant. That's why you are here. You are our expert on human affairs. I attended one diplomatic dinner with them. Zax'Voon protested. That hardly makes me an expert. You're the closest thing we have since we executed their ambassador and purged all their cultural attaches, Court said dryly. Now figure out how to open this thing. Zax'Voon circled the vessel, noting the strange symbols etched into its hull. Definitely not standard human script. As he completed his circuit, he noticed something odd. A small panel near what appeared to be the entry hatch, with an impression in the shape of a hand. A 5-fingered hand. I think I found the access point, he called to Court. But it needs a human handprint. Well, that's problematic. Court's voice dripped with sarcasm. Given that we have expelled all humans from Confederation space and are about to exterminate the rest. Zax'Voon's mind raced. Not all humans. We still have Ambassador Chen's remains in stasis for the victory parade tomorrow. Court's eye stalks quivered with distaste. You want to use a dead human's hand to open the ship? That's practical. I was going to say disgusting, but yes, also practical. Do it. 30 minutes later, with the preserved hand of the late Ambassador Roderick Chen pressed against the panel, a procedure that had made several junior officers expel their nutrient sacs, the hatch of the mysterious vessel finally slid open with a soft hiss. Security drones first, ordered Court, and a swarm of hovering, weapon-equipped spheres zoomed into the opening. After several tense moments, the lead drone emerged. Vessel secure, Director. One life form detected. Species unknown. Unknown. Zax'Voon and Court exchanged confused looks. Show us, commanded Court. The drone projected a holographic image into the air between them. Zax'Voon leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. The creature inside the vessel appeared to be humanoid, but was clearly not human. Its skin was pale blue, with faint markings that seemed to shimmer. No hair like humans had, but instead a series of ridges along the skull. Most peculiar of all, its eyes were entirely black, with no whites or visible pupils. One of the 7 suns is that, whispered Court. I have no idea, admitted Zax'Voon, genuinely intrigued for the first time in cycles. But I intend to find out. The creature sat calmly in the interrogation chamber, seemingly unperturbed by the restraint field that held it immobile. Zax'Voon observed through the one-way barricade, fascinated by its composure. It hasn't said a word since we brought it in, reported Security Chief Blorg, a hulking Taurian whose species was known more for brawn than brains. Just sits there, staring. Has it been scanned? Asked Zax'Voon. Attempted. Our scanners can't penetrate its cellular structure. It's like nothing we have ever encountered. Zax'Voon made a decision. I'm going in. Is that wise? Court looked dubious. We don't know what it's capable of. It's contained in a Class 10 restraint field. What could possibly go wrong? Zax'Voon pushed his hoverpod toward the chamber entrance. Those are notorious last words. Officer Zax'Voon, muttered Court, but he didn't stop him. Inside the chamber, the creature's black eyes tracked Zax'Voon as he approached. Up close, the blue skin had an almost metallic quality, and the ridges on its skull pulsed faintly with an inner light. I am Intelligence Officer Zax'Voon of the Galactic Confederation, he began formally. You have illegally entered Confederation space in a vessel of unknown origin. Identify yourself and state your purpose. The creature's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. When it spoke, its voice was melodious, with an undertone that made Zax'Voon's spine ridges tingle uncomfortably. My name is Lirra. I come as a messenger. A messenger? Zax'Voon's eye stalks twitched with interest. From whom? From those you would call the Ancient Ones. Those who seeded this galaxy with life long, before your Confederation was even a concept. Zax'Voon felt a chill run through his fluid sacs. The Ancient Ones were a myth, a legend told to hatchlings, impossibly advanced beings who had supposedly created the first life forms in the galaxy before mysteriously vanishing billions of years ago. That's just a story, he stammered. Lirra's black eyes seemed to see right through him. Is it? Then how do you explain my presence? My vessel? Technology beyond even your Confederation's capabilities? You could be using stolen technology or experimental prototypes. There are many explanations that don't involve mythical beings, and yet the simplest explanation is often correct. The Ancient Ones have observed your Confederation for centuries. They have watched and waited, evaluating your species, all 12 of them, for potential inclusion in a galactic assembly. But what now? A coalition of advanced civilizations spanning multiple galaxies. Your Confederation is but a tiny fragment of sentient life in this universe. Officer Zax'Voon. Zax'Voon's mind raced. If this creature was telling the truth, and that was a massive if, this could change everything. And what does this have to do with the human vessel you arrived in? Are you saying the Ancient Ones are allied with humans? Lirra's expression remained serene. The vessel is not human in origin. It was merely designed to appear so, to evaluate your reaction. A test, if you will. One that your Confederation has failed spectacularly. A test? What are you talking about? The execution of Ambassador Chen was observed, as was the Confederation's decision to exterminate humanity. Such actions demonstrate that your civilization is not ready for inclusion in the assembly. Zax'Voon felt a growing unease. Wait, are you saying that the humans are under the protection of these Ancient Ones? The humans are more than protected. They are valued. While primitive in technology, they possess qualities the Ancient Ones find promising. Qualities? Like what? Their incessant noise-making? Their bizarre obsession with covering themselves in fabric? Their constant emission of noxious gases? Lirra's mouth curved again. Creativity, resilience, empathy. Qualities your Confederation clearly lacks. Now wait just a minute. The armada you plan to send against Earth will not reach its destination. Officer Zax'Voon. This is not a threat. It is simply information I have been instructed to provide. Zax'Voon felt his temper rising. Is that so? And how exactly do these Ancient Ones plan to stop an armada of 5,000 warships? For the first time, Lirra's calm demeanor shifted slightly. A hint of what might have been pity crossed its features. They already have. At that moment, Zax'Voon's communication implant buzzed urgently. He accepted the call without taking his eyes off Lirra. Officer Zax'Voon, report to the command center immediately. It was Supreme Commander Krell, and he sounded panicked, an emotion Zax'Voon had never heard from the usually composed commander. What's happening? The armada. It's gone. Gone? What do you mean gone? It hasn't even launched yet. It launched early on my order. We received intelligence that the humans might have been alerted to our plans. But now, all 5,000 ships have vanished from our sensors. No debris, no distresignals. Just gone. Zax'Voon stared at Lirra, whose expression remained unchanged. I will be right there, he said faintly, ending the call. As I said, Lirra spoke softly. This was merely information, not a threat. The Ancient Ones do not wish conflict with your Confederation. They simply will not permit the extinction of a species with potential. And what happens now? Zax'Voon asked, suddenly feeling very small in his hoverpod. Now you have a choice. The Confederation can continue its current path, isolated, xenophobic, stagnant. Or it can reconsider its stance toward humanity, and perhaps, in time, earn consideration for the Galactic Assembly. And if we choose the first option, Lirra's black eyes seem to grow even darker. Then you'll be left alone, Officer Zax'Voon, completely alone in a very, very large universe. The Ancient Ones do not destroy civilizations that reject their values. They simply move on. Zax'Voon felt a creeping horror at the thought. The Confederation, believing itself to be the pinnacle of galactic civilization, revealed to be nothing but a primitive backwater, ignored by truly advanced beings. I should report this to my superiors, he said finally. Of course. Lirra nodded. That is why I came to you specifically, Zax'Voon. To me? What? Because out of all your Confederation representatives, you were the only one who abstained from voting for humanity's extinction. Zax'Voon's eye stalks stiffened in shock. That's because I was asleep, not because I care about humans. Intentions are less important than actions in the eyes of the Ancient Ones. You did not vote for genocide, regardless of your reasons. That made you the logical choice for this conversation. With a soft hum, the restraint field around Lirra suddenly dissipated. Zax'Voon jerked backward in his hoverpod, but Lirra made no aggressive moves. Instead, it simply stood and stretched, as if the field had been deactivated by command rather than through any action of its own. The choice now lies with your Confederation, Officer Zax'Voon. I have delivered my message. What happens next is up to you. As alarms began blaring throughout the facility, Zax'Voon realized with growing dread that what had begun as a routine, boring day might well be remembered as the moment that changed the fate of the Galactic Confederation forever. And somehow, improbably, he was right in the middle of it. The command center of Rigel 7 had devolved into barely controlled chaos. Supreme Commander Krell's 6 arms flailed in different directions as he barked contradictory orders at his subordinates. His skin had turned a sickly yellow, the Drexovian equivalent of a human panic attack. I want answers. How does an armada of 5,000 ships simply vanish? He roared, spittle flying from all 3 of his mouth orifices. Zax'Voon hovered at the edge of the commotion, his mind still reeling from his encounter with Lirra. The blue-skin messenger had been placed under heavier security. Not that it seemed to matter. 3 separate restraint fields now surrounded the creature, yet it appeared as unconcerned as if lounging in a luxury spa pod. Director Quirt slithered over to Zax'Voon, his fluid sacs pulsating with stress. This is unprecedented. The entire armada gone without a trace. No debris field, no radiation signature, nothing. It's as if they were erased from existence. Or relocated, Zax'Voon murmured. What was that? Zax'Voon hesitated. How could he explain what Lirra had told him without sounding like he'd inhaled hallucinogenic spores? The messenger, Lirra, claims to represent beings called the Ancient Ones. Supposedly, they have intervened to protect humanity. Quart's eye stalks twisted in disbelief. The Ancient Ones? Those are just myths. Stories to frighten hatchlings into proper behavior. That's what I thought too, Zax'Voon said, until our entire armada vanished exactly when Lirra said it would. Before Quirt could respond, Supreme Commander Krell noticed them and barreled over, his hoverpod nearly colliding with theirs. You two, stop whispering like nestmates and report. What did you learn from the intruder? Zax'Voon straightened his posture. Commander, the situation is complicated. The being calls itself Lirra and claims to represent an advanced coalition of species spanning multiple galaxies. Preposterous, Krell scoffed, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his compound eyes. It also claims responsibility for the disappearance of our armada. A hush fell over the command center as nearby officers turned to listen. On what authority? Krell demanded, his voice notably quieter. On the authority of what it calls the Ancient Ones, beings who apparently seeded life throughout this galaxy billions of years ago. Krell's hoverpod dropped several inches, a sign of profound shock in a Drexovian. The Ancient Ones are a myth. So everyone keeps saying, Zax'Voon replied dryly. And yet our armada is still missing. Krell's skin shifted from yellow to a mottled purple, confusion mixed with rage. Are you suggesting we believe this? This invader? That we accept the existence of mythical beings on the word of an unknown species? I'm suggesting, Zax'Voon said carefully, that we consider the evidence before us. 5,000 warships don't just disappear without a trace. And Lirra predicted it would happen before it did. A nervous murmur spread through the command center. Krell's eye stalks swiveled, taking in the growing unease among his officers. What does it want? He finally asked, his voice unnaturally quiet. It says the Ancient Ones want us to reconsider our decision regarding humanity. Reconsider? Krell's voice rose again. The humans violated our most sacred protocols. Their diplomat made a joke during the sacred silence. Yes, about that. Zax'Voon shifted uncomfortably. I've been thinking, is it possible that the human didn't understand the significance of the ceremony? Their species doesn't communicate telepathically like the Zorblaxians. Perhaps it was a cultural misunderstanding rather than deliberate sacrilege. Director Quirt made a choking sound. Are you defending the humans now, Officer Zax'Voon? Need I remind you that you work for Confederation intelligence? Your job is to identify threats to our way of life, not sympathize with them. My job, Zax'Voon retorted, surprising himself with his boldness, is to gather and analyze information to ensure the security of the Confederation. And right now, the greatest threat to our security appears to be our own xenophobia. The command center fell silent. Even Supreme Commander Krell seemed temporarily speechless. Zax'Voon continued. his confidence growing. "Commander, I recommend we speak with Lirra again, this time with the full council present. If there really are advanced civilizations beyond our knowledge, civilizations with the power to make our armada vanish without a trace, then we need to take this seriously." Krell stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "Summon the council. Full emergency session, and bring the prisoner." The Grand Council chamber of Rigel 7 had never been so tense. Representatives of all 12 Confederation species sat in their designated areas, whispering urgently to their advisors. The news of the Armada's disappearance had spread like wildfire, along with rumors of an alien messenger with impossible claims. Zax'Voon found himself suddenly elevated from obscure intelligence officer to central figure in the unfolding crisis. His hoverpod had been positioned at the front of the chamber, beside Supreme Commander Krell and the other high officials. "This is your mess, Zax'Voon," Krell had growled at him. "You spoke to the creature first. You will lead the questioning." The chamber doors parted, and a procession of security drones escorted Lirra into the center of the room. The blue-skinned messenger walked with elegant poise, apparently untroubled by the restraint cuffs on its wrists or the weapons trained on it from all directions. Supreme Commander Krell raised his primary arms for silence. "Representatives of the Galactic Confederation, we face an unprecedented situation. Our armada, destined for Earth to execute the lawful judgment against humanity, has vanished without explanation. This being claims to have knowledge of what happened." All eyes and various sensory appendages turned to Lirra, who stood calmly in the center of the chamber. Krell nodded to Zax'Voon. "Intelligence Officer Zax'Voon will conduct the questioning." Zax'Voon guided his hoverpod forward, suddenly acutely aware of the historical significance of this moment. His name would be in the Confederation archives forever, either as the officer who helped navigate a first contact with superior beings, or as the gullible fool who fell for an elaborate hoax. Preferably the former. "Lirra," he began, trying to keep his voice steady, "you claim to represent beings called the Ancient Ones. You have implied that these beings are responsible for the disappearance of our armada. Can you explain to this council exactly what happened to our ships?" Lirra's black eyes surveyed the chamber before returning to Zax'Voon. "Your vessels have been relocated to the orbit of a planet you designate as Proxima Centauri b. They are intact, as are their crews. They will remain there, unable to proceed to Earth or return to Confederation space, until this council reconsiders its decision regarding humanity." Outraged exclamations erupted around the chamber. Krell slammed his appendages down for order. "That's over 4 light years away," sputtered the Arcturian representative. "No technology in the known galaxy could transport an entire armada such a distance instantaneously. No technology known to your Confederation," Lirra corrected gently. "The Ancient Ones surpassed such limitations billions of years ago." "Prove it," demanded Krell. "Prove these Ancient Ones exist." Lirra tilted its head slightly. "Very well." Without warning, the lights in the council chamber dimmed. Above Lirra, the air seemed to ripple and then expand into a swirling vortex of light and color. The security drones malfunctioned and dropped to the floor, inert. From the vortex emerged a holographic image so vivid and three-dimensional that it filled half the chamber. It showed the Confederation Armada, all 5,000 ships orbiting a reddish planet. The image zoomed in to show Drexovian commanders on their bridges, clearly confused but very much alive. "This is happening in real time," Lirra explained. "Your crews are unharmed but contained. They have supplies for 1 standard year. Within that time, you must make your decision." The council chamber erupted in panicked voices. Representative Glixvord, the Zorblaxian whose breathing sac had ruptured during the infamous human joke incident, actually fainted, his body deflating like a punctured balloon. Supreme Commander Krell struggled to restore order. "Silence. This could be a trick, an elaborate holographic deception." "It is not," Lirra replied simply. "But your skepticism is understandable. Perhaps this will be more convincing." The holographic display shifted, expanding to show not just the relocated armada, but an even larger fleet beyond it. Ships of designs unlike anything the Confederation had ever seen, vast, organic-looking vessels that seemed to flow rather than fly through space. There were thousands of them, dwarfing the Confederation Armada. This is a small contingent of the Galactic Assembly's peacekeeping force, said Lirra. They have been dispatched as a precautionary measure. They, too, will remain in position until your decision is made. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. Even Krell seemed to have run out of bluster. Director Quirt was the first to recover his voice. What? What exactly do these Ancient Ones want from us? Lirra's expression softened slightly. They wish for you to grow, to evolve beyond your current limitations. The Galactic Confederation has achieved remarkable technological advancement, but your social and ethical development lags behind. You voted to exterminate an entire species over a cultural misunderstanding. The human violated our most sacred, began Representative Glixvoort, who had partially reinflated. Yes, interrupted Lirra. Ambassador Chen made a sound during your telepathic communion ceremony, a ceremony that humans, lacking any telepathic ability, cannot possibly participate in meaningfully. Did any of you explain this to him? Did anyone consider that his species communicates primarily through audible vibrations, and that remaining completely silent for 12 hours might be as alien to him as telepathy is to you? Uncomfortable glances were exchanged across the chamber. The Ancient Ones have observed humanity for millennia, Lirra continued. They're a young species, yes. Technologically primitive by your standards, yes. But they possess qualities that the Assembly values: adaptability, creativity, resilience, and most importantly, a capacity for growth. And what of our capacity for growth? Asked Zax'Voon, genuinely curious. You said the Confederation has a choice to make. What exactly are our options? Lirra's black eyes seemed to look beyond Zax'Voon, as if seeing possible futures. You have 3 paths before you. First, you can maintain your course, attempt to destroy humanity, and reject the guidance of the Ancient Ones. Your armada will remain where it is, and the Confederation will be quarantined from interacting with other advanced civilizations until you evolve beyond your current mindset. This could take thousands of years, or never happen at all. A troubled murmur spread through the council. Second, you can choose to leave humanity alone, neither attempting to destroy them nor engaging with them. Your armada will be returned, and the Confederation will be permitted limited contact with the Galactic Assembly, primarily for observation and study. Supreme Commander Krell leaned forward. And the third option? The third path requires the most courage, said Lirra. You can acknowledge your error, make reparations to humanity, and actively work to build a relationship with them as equals. If you choose this path, the Confederation will be considered for probationary membership in the Galactic Assembly, with all the benefits that entails, including access to technologies beyond your current imagination. Reparations? Sputtered Krell. To a primitive species that violated our protocols? To a species whose last diplomat you executed without trial or proper cultural consideration, Lirra corrected. And to a species that, despite appearances, has been of interest to the Ancient Ones since their evolution began. Another holographic image appeared, showing Earth from orbit, a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. The Ancient Ones seeded countless worlds with the potential for life, Lirra explained. Only a fraction developed sentient civilizations. Of those, only a small percentage achieved interstellar travel. Humanity is younger than most spacefaring species, yet they have shown remarkable progress in a short time. More importantly, they have demonstrated exceptional creativity and emotional intelligence, qualities that technology alone cannot provide. The image zoomed in, showing humans in their various activities, building, creating art, helping one another, exploring their world. The Ancient Ones believe that humanity has the potential to bring new perspectives to the Galactic Assembly. They are different from you, from all of you, and that diversity is valuable. But they cannot fulfill that potential if they are exterminated over a diplomatic misstep. The council chamber had grown very quiet. Zax'Voon looked around at the representatives, seeing confusion, fear, but also, in some, the first glimmers of introspection. How long do we have to decide? Asked the Valerian representative, her translucent skin pulsing with anxious light. 1 standard cycle of your largest moon, replied Lirra. 42 of your days. Supreme Commander Krell's eye stalks quivered with indignation. The Galactic Confederation does not bow to ultimatums. We are the supreme power in this region of space. Are you? Lirra asked mildly, gesturing to the holographic display of the vastly superior fleet surrounding the stranded Confederation Armada. Krell deflated slightly. This is not an ultimatum, Commander. It is an invitation, an opportunity for your Confederation to join a larger community of civilizations. The choice, as I've said from the beginning, is entirely yours. Zax'Voon found himself drawn to Lirra's calm confidence. These ancient ones, why don't they show themselves? Why send you as an intermediary? Lirra's mouth curved in that almost smile again. The ancient ones rarely interact directly with developing civilizations. Their form and consciousness are difficult for most species to comprehend. I am part of a specialized diplomatic corps, specifically adapted to communicate with civilizations at your stage of development. And humanoid in appearance, noted Zax'Voon. Coincidence? Hardly, replied Lirra. My form was chosen specifically for this mission, familiar enough to be comprehensible to you, different enough to be clearly non-human. The Ancient Ones are very precise in their methods. Supreme Commander Krell had been conferring urgently with his advisors. He turned back to the Council. Representatives of the Confederation, we must deliberate on this situation. I propose an emergency conclave to discuss our options. The prisoner will be returned to secure holding until we reach a decision. I am not a prisoner, said Lirra calmly, but I will respect your processes and wait for your decision. As the security drones reactivated and moved to escort Lirra out, the messenger paused and looked directly at Zax'Voon. Before I leave, there is one more thing you should know. Ambassador Chen is alive. The council chamber erupted in chaos. What? Krell's voice rose above the din. That's impossible. The human was executed. I witnessed it myself. You witnessed a simulacrum, said Lirra. At the moment of the scheduled execution, the Ancient Ones substituted a perfect replica while extracting the real ambassador. He has been serving as a cultural liaison, helping us understand humanity better. He harbors no ill will toward the Confederation and has, in fact, advocated for your eventual inclusion in the Assembly. Zax'Voon couldn't help himself. He laughed, a burbling sound that drew shocked stares from those around him. So, the human we executed wasn't even real, and the real one is now advocating for us? That's ironic, suggested Lirra. I was going to say absolutely hilarious, but ironic works too. Even some of the council members seemed to be fighting inappropriate amusement. The absurdity of the situation, the mighty Confederation outwitted by beings they considered myths, their grand execution revealed as meaningless theater, their armada relocated like toys moved by a displeased parent, was almost too much to process. As Lirra was led from the chamber, the council descended into frantic discussion. Zax'Voon found himself suddenly exhausted. What had started as a boring day of diplomatic proceedings had evolved into a complete upheaval of everything the Confederation thought it knew about its place in the universe. Officer Zax'Voon called Supreme Commander Krell. You will join the emergency conclave. Your unique perspective on this situation may be valuable. Zax'Voon blinked his 4 eyes in surprise. Me? I'm just an intelligence officer, and not a particularly dedicated one, if we're being honest. You are the one the messenger chose to communicate with initially, said Krell, his tone suggesting he found this fact as puzzling as everyone else did. Besides, you were the only representative who didn't vote for humanity's extinction. Because I was asleep? Zax'Voon protested. Perhaps, said Krell, with what might have been a hint of amusement, but in light of recent developments, your accidentally moderate position seems prophetic. The emergency conclave lasted for 3 full days. Zax'Voon, to his own surprise, found himself arguing passionately for the third option, reconciliation with humanity and application to the Galactic Assembly. Not because he had any particular fondness for humans, he still found them disconcertingly moist, but because the alternative seemed increasingly short-sighted. We have spent our entire existence believing we were the pinnacle of civilization, he told the assembled leaders. Now we know that's not true. We can either cling to our pride and remain isolated, or we can acknowledge our mistake and grow from it. Besides, he added with a ripple of his sensory tentacles, I'm curious to see what technologies these ancient ones might share. Aren't you? On the 4th day, The Confederation announced its decision. Supreme Commander Krell, looking somewhat deflated but resolute, addressed Lirra in a formal ceremony. The Galactic Confederation has voted to rescind its judgment against humanity. We will establish a new diplomatic mission to Earth, with appropriate cultural training this time, and begin the process of reparations for our misunderstanding. Lirra inclined its head. The Ancient Ones will be pleased to hear this. Your armada will be returned immediately, and a delegation from the Galactic Assembly will arrive within one rotation of your planet to begin orientation procedures for your probationary membership. There is one condition, added Krell, his eye stalks rigid with what remaining dignity he could muster. We wish to meet Ambassador Chen, the real one, face to face. 2. Apologize formally for the execution misunderstanding. That can be arranged, said Lirra. He has expressed interest in resuming his diplomatic duties with the Confederation, despite everything. Remarkable, murmured Zax'Voon. After what we did, or thought we did, he's willing to come back. Humans have an unusual capacity for forgiveness, said Lirra. It's one of the qualities the Ancient Ones find most intriguing about them. And what about you? Asked Zax'Voon. Will you remain as the Assembly's representative to the Confederation? Lirra's black eyes seemed to sparkle with something like amusement. For the time being, I find your civilization educational, particularly you, Officer Zax'Voon. Me? What's so interesting about me? You slept through a vote on genocide, yet ended up being the voice of reason in a galactic crisis. The Ancient Ones find that statistically improbable. Are you saying I was chosen for something? I'm saying that sometimes, Officer Zax'Voon, the universe has a sense of humor, a quality it shares with humanity incidentally. As the formal proceedings concluded and the Confederation began the daunting task of reorganizing itself for a vastly larger and more complex galaxy than it had ever imagined, Zax'Voon found himself assigned as the liaison to Lirra and the incoming Assembly delegation. Try not to sleep through any important votes this time, Director Cord had told him dryly, standing at the observation deck of Rigel 7's main spaceport. Watching the returned armada dock amid much subdued ceremony, Zax'Voon felt something he hadn't experienced in cycles, genuine excitement about the future. You know, he said to Lirra, who stood beside him, I still don't understand why the Ancient Ones care so much about humans specifically. They are so primitive, so emotional, so messy. Perhaps that's precisely why, replied Lirra. The Assembly includes thousands of species, many with technology so advanced it would seem like magic to you. But technology isn't everything. Perspective matters. Heart matters. Heart. You mean the organ that pumps their circulatory fluid? Lirra's mouth curved in that now familiar almost smile. A metaphor, Officer Zax'Voon, one you'll come to understand better as you interact more with humans. I still think they are bizarre, muttered Zax'Voon, but with less conviction than before. They are, agreed Lirra, and that's what makes them valuable. Diversity of thought, of approach, of being. These are the true currencies of an advanced civilization. As they watched the ship's dock, a message arrived that the first Assembly delegation would be arriving within hours, along with Ambassador Chen. The real one this time. I suppose I should prepare to meet an actual human, sighed Zax'Voon. Any advice? Don't mention how moist they are, suggested Lirra. They're sensitive about that. And whatever you do, don't tell them their offspring look like larvae. They are quite attached to their young. Noted. And what about jokes? Are those still forbidden? Lirra turned its black eyes to him, and for the first time, Zax'Voon saw what might have been genuine amusement there. On the contrary, Officer Zax'Voon, I think you will find that with humans, humor is often the best way to begin. As the first Assembly ship appeared in the sky above Rigel 7, a glittering vessel that seemed to bend light around it in impossible ways, Zax'Voon felt the weight of history settling on his four eye stalks. The Confederation, for better or worse, was about to become part of something much, much larger than itself. And somehow, improbably, he was still right in the middle of it, that he was going to need a better hoverpod.